Chapter 35. No longer the status quo. 9:20 a.m. Tuesday, 31 August 1995, Romanian Dragon Sanctuary, Romania. Memzath's head turned even before the first steps of his visitor were felt, much less heard. Rising, he lumbered down the tunnel towards the light of the canyon. "Where, leader?" Damrath said, lowering his head in respect. "Damrath, it is good to see you this morn," Memzath replied. "Where, leader, I caught a taste in the air. It boded ill," Damrath replied. "Show me," Memzath instructed. With a great leap, Damrath was airborne, his wings working hard to rise above the canyon walls. Memzath, with his greater wingspan, was mere moments behind him. The sun was still low on the horizon, the dawn having not long passed. Memzath had seen the two legs on their sticks flying over earlier, something that was noted by all the dragons. Every morning since as long as Memzath could remember, the two legs would fly above them. Never before the speaker had arrived had any dragon risen to fly with them. Occasionally challenge, yes, but not fly alongside. When the speaker had first arrived, the dragons had joined him in flight to celebrate the joy of having one such as he who respected them, spoke with them, and honored him. The practice was continued every day alongside the speaker by most dragons, something that all dragons had come to enjoy. But with the speaker gone, looking after dragons far away, the two legs had continued their flight on their own, alone, without dragon wing beside them. Thus, it surprised Memzath that Damrath had obviously sensed something on a morning flight. The two dragons soared above the weir, traveling half the length of the canyon before Damrath veered off towards the south. The pastures were that way where there was always good hunting and good eating, but they did not stop there instead, continuing on. A buzz akin to a multitude of the tiniest annoying insects swarmed over his body for the merest moment, and Memzath knew that they'd flown beyond the two-leg magic that surrounded the weir. "Down there, weir leader," Damrath indicated. As they spiraled in towards the indicated spot, Memzath reached out and tasted the air. At first it was the faintest touch of magic, dark magic, an evil taste, a taste that should not be. Memzath concentrated, unaware that his eyes were now spiraling yellows, oranges, and reds. "There," Damzath said, indicating with a pointed wing a fallen log. "I taste it," Memzath replied and stalked forwards. Damzath, he was aware, lumbered to the side, keeping the focus of their attention in his sights. Now that he was closer, Memzath flicked his tongue out. The wrongness of the magic struck him, and his eyes began smoldering with a red so dark that it almost appeared black. He detasted this magic before, this wrongness. It was vile, most evil. Memory burst into being of the last time that he detasted it in the weir bowl, residing in the very head of the speaker. But that time, the magic, while evil, was smaller, less intense. This was brighter, more concentrated, as though that smaller piece that was in the speaker stemmed from whatever evil lay hidden under the log. Nothing, though, could stay hidden from a dragon's sight for very long. Extending one great paw, Memzath hooked his claws into the log and yanked it away. The log sailed off to the side, not that he cared where, his sole focus being on what remained. A dragon. Good, a snake hissed. Memzath didn't deign to reply, instead merely studying it. It was a good size for a snake. Perhaps it might even be considered larger than normal. Not that Memzath cared. All that mattered was the taste of that evil magic, magic that was coming from the snake. How that could be, Memzath neither knew nor cared. The fact that it was so close to the weir was most concerning. Could it be that this evil magic was seeking out the speaker to taint him once more? The idea had merit in itself, however minuscule a chance that magic might have of achieving such a thing. The speaker was protected. The speaker had the wings of every dragon to shelter under, the flames of all dragonkind at his call, should it be needed. "You will make an excellent host," the dragon hissed. Memzath's reply was short but sharp. A single, white-hot burst of flame washed over the snake, burning it to ash in the blink of an eye. An ethereal scream echoed in the air for longer, but Memzath paid it no heed. Taking a careful taste of the air, Memzath found that the evil taint that the snake gave off was gone. Satisfied, he gave a single snort before leaping into the air, Damrath right behind him before they wheeled about and flew back towards the weir. 0v0, 1 p.m. Tuesday, 31 August 1995, Headmaster's Office, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Scotland. Albus Dumbledore swung his chair away from the parchment burning in the fireplace. He had no desire to see it ever again, thus why he banished the offensive thing there just moments before. It had arrived a bare 5 minutes before by Owl, and he opened it in complete ignorance of what it was going to contain. The seal holding it closed declared who it was from, a well-known entity that he had never had trouble with. After all, letters from the International Confederation of Wizardry, of which he was the supreme mugwamp, had only ever contained useful information or good news. This, though, was different. The letter had been brisk, to the point, and brief. The Iqua had heard about that farce of a trial from the day before and the absurd verdict, and they'd believed every word of it. The letter expressed surprise and disappointment, and a strong encouragement for him to step aside from his duties as supreme mugwamp, so that there was no taint of impropriety upon that esteemed office. Oh, Albus knew exactly what it was really saying in those flowery words. You're fired. The audacity of them. He had half a mind to have Fawkes flame him to the head chambers of the Iqua in Endora in all his power, and remind them exactly who he was. Fire him. Exactly who did they think he was? Better yet, who did they think they were? Headmaster Dumbledore. Albus blinked and pulled his thoughts back to his office at the unexpected voice. Spinning his chair around, he searched the room, his eyes coming to rest on the fireplace. Instead of the burning parchment in red flames, it now contained the head of Jeremiah Hawkesbury in green flames. It took him a moment to ensure that the right expression was on his face before addressing the man. He wondered what a member of the Hogwarts Board of Governors was doing fluing him, but after that letter, he suspected that he didn't want to know. Ah, Jeremiah, what is it that I can do for you? He asked lightly. Can you please open up your flue? The head of Jeremiah asked. Myself and 2 others have been tasked with seeing you. As tempting as it was to refuse, to claim that they make an appointment for another time or day, Albus knew that all he'd be doing was putting off the inevitable. A wave of his wand at the fireplace opened the connection. Of course, my boy, come through, he said, aiming to set the tone early. Jeremiah's head disappeared, only for the green flames to shoot up a moment later and for the man himself to step through, brushing soot and ash from his robes as he did so. As each of the next 2 arrived, Augusta Longbottom and Cyrus Greengrass Albus found himself regretting his decision to allow them through. This, he knew, was not going to be fun. Welcome, Jeremiah, Augusta, Cyrus, he said jovially. Won't you all take a seat? A swish of his wand conjured a 3rd chair to join the 2 that were already on the other side of his desk. Albus sat back in his own chair, folded his hands atop his beard, and peered at the 3 over the top of his half-moon spectacles as they took their seats. Lemon drop? He asked, indicating the bowl. Unfortunately, all 3 declined. What is it that I can do for the 3 of you today? He asked. As I am sure that you've guessed, we're here on behalf of the Hogwarts Board of Governors, Augustus stated. The board met yesterday afternoon after your trial to discuss all that we heard as well as the sentence that was passed, Cyrus added. And yet I was not in attendance, Albus pointed out. It is customary for the headmaster to be at every meeting of the board. As the meeting was about you, headmaster, we felt that it was better if you weren't there, Jeremiah stated. Albus focused his best disappointed look at the man and was internally gratified to see Jeremiah wince and look abashed. Stop that, Augustus stated, emphasizing her point with a sharp slap of the top of his desk with the palm of her hand. The board is entitled to meet without the headmaster present. We have done nothing wrong, and you shouldn't be trying to intimidate us into thinking that we have. Perhaps you would like to know what was decided, Cyrus asked, and Albus detected a note of barely concealed joy in the man's tone. If the board is having meetings without myself or a senior member of staff in attendance, then I believe that we should discuss your proposals in order to decide on the correct decisions, Albus told them. There is no discussion to be had, Albus, Augustus stated. The decisions have already been made. And we will be having a meeting with Minerva McGonagall as the deputy headmistress after we leave here to inform her of the decisions that were made as well, Jeremiah added. Albus sighed dramatically at them, causing only Jeremiah to look momentarily down. Unfortunately, neither Augusta nor Cyrus reacted as he wanted them to. Cyrus pulled a scroll from inside his robes and placed it in the center of Albus' desk. Albus, though, deigned from touching it, merely glancing at it before looking back at the three of them. That, Cyrus said, pointing at the scroll, begins by outlining the new directives under which the headmaster of Hogwarts is bound. And they are, Albus asked lightly, while internally bristling with rising anger. Firstly, that the headmaster is no longer to act as guardian to any student not of age in any capacity, Augusta began. That duty now falls to the student's head of house. Secondly, Cyrus continued with a satisfied-looking grin on his face. All parents must from now on be informed if a student is to be involved in non-regular school activities, and permission sought from said parents or guardians, just as they already are with Hogsmeade visits. Albus stared at them, his disappointed look in full force. Unfortunately, neither of those directives were unexpected. Unwanted and unneeded, yes. Unexpected, no. Especially after Cyrus' rant after the second task of the Triwizard Tournament, when his eldest, Daphne, was used as Harry Potter's hostage without his knowledge or consent. There is one further part to the decisions that the board made, Jeremiah said, causing Albus to focus on him. Due to the damage done to Hogwarts' reputation both here in the magical United Kingdom as well as abroad in France, Bulgaria and beyond, brought about by your own actions in your interference with the correct running of the Triwizard Tournament, you are hereby placed on probation for the next school year. A member or members of the Board of Governors will be conducting month reviews into your performance to ensure that you are performing to the high standard that we expect from the headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. At the end of the next school year, we will meet again to decide the next step, be it to return you to full duties, continue the probation period, or to cancel your appointment as headmaster. By the end of his speech, Jeremiah looked to have been cowed by Albus' intense concentration on him. As he should be, stating such ridiculous nonsense. The man was barely able to maintain eye contact, his breathing had become fast and shallow, and his voice was little more than a whisper. I see, Dumbledore stated, although he really didn't. It's all spelled out in there, Cyrus stated, once more pointing to the scroll in the middle of his desk. Minerva will be given a copy as well, so that she is aware of the decisions that the board has made. Do you really believe that all that is really necessary? Albus asked, nodding at the offensive scroll. You know that I have nothing but the best intentions for the greater good for the students and my school. Intentions are one thing, actions and results are quite another, Augustus stated. Well, I think that we've taken up enough of your time, Cyrus stated, rising from his chair. I am sure that you will want to read the directive for yourself. We'll see ourselves out after our meeting with Professor McGonagall. Albus simply gave a nod of acknowledgement, refusing to say anything. After all, there was nothing to thank them for. He waited until the three had risen from their seats, crossed the room, and exited out the door before snatching up the accursed scroll. A quick read-through was enough to ensure that it said exactly what he'd been told. His fist closed around it, scrunching up one side of it before he wandlessly banished the thing into his fireplace. A jab of his wand caused the embers to reignite, flaring up around the parchment and burning the thing to ash. First the Iqua, and being stripped of the role of supreme mugwamp. Now these people daring to dictate to him in his own school. Only the fact that he knew the three were still relatively close to his office, and likely to hear, stayed his hand from casting the most offensive spells that he knew around his office in an attempt to burn off how furious he was feeling. After all, as incandescently angry as he was still Albus Dumbledore with a reputation to maintain and uphold. 0v0, 10:45 a.m. Wednesday, 1 September 1995, Platform 9¾ King's Cross Station, London. Harry stepped through the barrier onto the platform and his eyes widened and then widened some more. He couldn't believe his eyes. He'd been told about it, of course, but seeing was a whole other layer of dragons. This was amazing. An entire train platform in one of the busiest train stations in the world, complete with a huge scarlet engine, billowing steam. A line of carriages and hundreds of people, witches, wizards, adults, teens, children all milling about or running here. And they're talking, laughing, shouting, and it was completely hidden from the rest of the world. Magic, he knew, could do some amazing things. But this was almost too much to imagine. He'd been to Diagon Alley before, multiple times even, and he'd been told that it was hidden from the non-magical world. But that was different. The alley could be explained away as being a real place, just with the entrance hidden so that no non-magical could get in without a magical showing them. This, though, an entire platform hidden by magic, was different. Somehow, it was squeezed in between two normal train platforms. Idly, Harry wondered if the entire thing had been displaced into a different dimension or something, only accessible by magic. His mind began trying to work out how that worked in practicality, especially when the train left the station. Were the train tracks that it ran on in a separate dimension as well, or did it join up with the normal train tracks? And if it did join up, then what stopped the Hogwarts Express from running into the hundreds of other, normal trains on the tracks? He was sure that the controllers didn't account for it in their schedules of which train ran on which track at any particular time. Harry! The sound of Susan's voice calling him brought him out of his introspection, and he looked up and waved. "Come on, pup, your friends are waiting," Sirius said from beside him. As the two walked forward, Harry noticed the crowd turning towards them and parting. Whispers seemed to race away from them in a wave, and then the murmurs started, the not-so-concealed comments, and the stares. The attention was almost oppressive, and Harry didn't think that it was something that he'd ever like or get used to. At least when it came to humans. Dragons, while acting much the same way in a lot of respect, didn't seem to bother Harry at all. "Hi, guys," he smiled as he joined up with his friends in front of one of the carriages halfway down the train. Instantly, Daphne was in his arms, hugging him and pressing a kiss to his cheek. "I am going to miss you," she said into his ear. "I'll miss more," he told her. "Did you want to have a look inside the train?" Neville asked. For an instant, Harry was tempted. Probably shouldn't, he finally decided. "Could you imagine if I was still on board when it left? That would be funny, though," Susan chuckled. "We'd get more time together if it happened," Daphne said, wiggling her eyebrows. "I wonder if it's ever happened before," Hermione mused. "Someone accidentally being on the train when it left, I mean. I think that I'll look it up once we get to Hogwarts." "This is going to be a big year for you guys," Harry noted. "Our owl year," Neville nodded, a flash of panic overtaking his face. "I am sure that I am going to fail everything." "Oh, Neville, we'd never let that happen," Hermione reassured him. "You're a much better and smarter than you think you are." "Especially in herbology," Susan added. "No one can beat you in that." "I'll send you some more plants and seeds when I visit other wares," Harry assured him. "Perhaps you can grow them for extra credit or something." "Cheers, Harry," Neville beamed, his look of uncertainty banished, replaced by excitement at the idea. "How much longer are you going to be in Britain?" Daphne asked. Harry shrugged. "I am not sure. The reserve at Papa's store is coming along nicely. Charlie seems happy with it, as do the dragons. It's more administration work that needs to be sorted at the moment. A few weeks, a month. I can't see it being longer than that. And then it's back to Romania, or are you off somewhere else?" Daphne asked. "Romania," Harry replied. "Just like you lot, I've got studies to do too, and my tutors are all in Romania. Well, apart from Sirius and Remus. I can't seem to get rid of those two, they follow me everywhere." Well, see you again before you leave, though, right? Daphne asked, her eyes looking into his intently. I'll make sure of it, he replied. You might even see me sooner than you think. What? When? Daphne asked, although she was barely able to be heard over the sound of the piercing whistle announcing that the Hogwarts Express was about to get underway. We better get on the train, Hermione insisted. Bye, Harry. See you later. Take care of yourself, mate, Neville smiled, shaking Harry's hand. Bye, Harry, Susan said, giving him a quick hug before she followed the other two onto the train. I'll miss you, Daff, Harry said, taking his girlfriend into his arms. I'll miss you too, she replied, kissing him deeply. The whistle sounded a second time. Daphne, Susan urged, Go, I'll see you soon. Harry said, giving her a last quick kiss before pushing her towards the train. When? She asked, even as she backed away. Soon. He replied, even as a great cloud of steam whooshed over the platform as the train began inching forward. Quickly, Daphne ran the last few steps before jumping up onto the train. The train began picking up speed, and he, just like all of the other parents and younger children there, began waving and calling out goodbyes to the train and those on it. You're going to see them soon? Sirius asked, laying a hand around Harry's shoulders. That's the plan, he smiled even as the caboose passed them. At least, the dragons and I have something in mind. Chapter 36, Appointments. 2:35 p.m. Wednesday, 1 September 1995, Dragon Weir of Great Britain Papa Store, Shetland Islands, Scotland. Speaker, the two legs have arrived. Harry looked across to where Farley's had dropped in beside him, her great wings rising and falling as they flew over the island. Thank you, Farley's. I guess we'd better go and talk to them, he replied. Are the others aware? Yes, Speaker, they are already winging to the meeting place, she replied. It had been peaceful up there in the air with only the winds, clouds, and of course, a dozen or so dragons keeping him company. Indeed, he'd been the only human on the island since he'd arrived that morning, which had given him time to survey the island and to have the conversations that he'd needed to have. The island of Papa Store looked remarkably different from when he'd first laid eyes on it. Not that that was unexpected. More tons of rocks had been shipped onto the island than Harry could count in the past week. And once they had arrived and the shrinking charm had been removed, the dragons had gone to work. Rocks and boulders ranging in size from small cars to a triple-decker bus had been caught up by the dragons and moved around the island. Most of the dragons had turned the rocks that they'd gathered into great nests. Others had been more ambitious and piled the rocks carefully on top of each other to create dragon-sized caves. The location of each weir had been carefully chosen by each dragon, and from what Harry could tell, there had been very few disagreements among them over who settled where. By mutual decision, the area around the buildings that would be used by the human dragon handlers was given a wide berth by all dragons. Bringing his broom around, Harry lay flat against the handle and put on a burst of speed. For a brief instant, he wondered whether he could get to the upcoming meeting first. The green nose of Farley's reappearing in his peripheral vision abused him of the notion. As he and Farley's approached the buildings, the other dragons that had been flying with him peeled away. 5 dragons had arrived before them, and Harry marveled once again at seeing so many different types and colors of dragons, together Hungarian horntail, Ukrainian ironbelly, Norwegian ridgeback, and 2 Hibernian blacks, soon to be added to by Farley's common Welsh green joining them. The 3 wizards and 1 witch were nearby, their distance from the dragons indicating their varying levels of braveness. Harry, Charlie called, raising his hand in greeting. Hey, Charlie, Harry replied as he landed beside his friend before nodding to the other 3. Madam Grimblehawk, Angus, Minister Fudge. Mr. Potter, Fudge replied, bustling forward with his hand outstretched, both eyes firmly locked onto the bulk of the dragons behind Harry. I've told you before, Minister, Harry sighed. The dragons won't hurt you unless you hurt them first. Yes. Quite so, Fudge replied, clearing his throat and pulling off his green bowler hat and holding it in front of his chest as though it was some kind of shield. Thank you for meeting us, Harry. Mathilda smiled. She then turned to the dragons and bowed to them, just as Shed seen Harry himself do. If you would give my greetings to the dragons, Harry, and tell them that we value their input in the decisions today. Harry blinked at her, surprised by her actions. It did, though, solidify the idea that he had in mind for a while now. My friends, Mathilda greets you all and thanks you for being here. She asks for your wise counsel this day in the discussions of the two legs, he said. We like this one, speaker. Meredith stated that it is uncommon for a two-leg to show dragons any respect. Not even the two legs at our weir treat us this way, Ramaranth commented. They are set in their ways, but they are trying. Harry replied, this weir is new, and I think the two legs here are trying something new to them. Harry, Mathilda asked. He smiled at her. The dragons return your greetings and are impressed by how you're including them today. Fudge, Harry saw, gave a firm nod, a slight frown on his face, and Harry wondered what the man was thinking. Fudge had wanted to hold this meeting at the ministry. Harry, though, had pushed back, insisting that it be held here, where the dragons could also be involved. After all, the decisions today would affect the dragons and the weir for years to come. The dragons are very happy with the weir, Harry told them all. I think that they've almost finished creating their own individual weirs. Do they need any more rocks? Mathilda asked. Are there any more dragons that have yet to come here? Harry asked. Our records are that there are only 4 more we're still trying to locate, Mathilda replied. There are also 18 wild dragons in Iceland, Fudge stated. I am in negotiations with the Icelandic ministry to have those dragons found and brought here. They'll be better off here with their own kin rather than off on their own. Angus nodded approvingly. In that case, if you could bring in another load or 2 of rocks for the new dragons when they get here, that would be good. Harry replied to the original question, making a mental note to talk to Meredith or Bremley's later about sending a dragon or 2 to Iceland to find the wares of their brethren, regardless of how the ministerial negotiations went. Your report, Madam Grimblehawk, stated that the dragon weir of Great Britain was ready to get underway properly, Fudge asked. The buildings have now all been altered and fitted as necessary, and I have 9 dragon handlers and 6 support staff signed and ready to start work next Monday. That's in addition to Angus here, who knows this island almost as well as the dragons, Mathilda replied proudly. We've also had the 2 wee islands to the north warded and filled with flocks o' sheep, goats, and coos for the dragons, Angus added. Sounds to me as though you're only missing one thing that a dragon reserve needs, Charlie stated. A head dragon handler, which I believe is why we're here today, Fudge said. I have an idea about that, and it's why I insisted that we decide who that should be here, where we can make sure that the dragons are happy with the choice, Harry said. But none of us can talk to dragons like you can, Harry, Mathilda reminded him. I know, Harry replied. But the dragons knowing which two-leg witch or wizard, is in charge will make it easier for them. The reverse is also true. The dragon handlers knowing which dragon is the weir leader is also important. Which dragon is that? Charlie asked, looking over the 3 native dragons, Farleys, Bremleys, and Meredith. I'll discuss that with the dragons after the head handler has been chosen, Harry replied. Madam Grimblehawk, as head of the department for the regulation and monitoring of the dragons of Great Britain, I believe that it falls to you to nominate who the head dragon handler will be, Minister Fudge smiled. The choice hasn't been easy, she replied, her eyes flicking to both Harry and Charlie. The most experienced of the 9 that I've employed is Jonas Winderwood. He's originally from Canada and has been working at the Dragon Sanctuary of Tanzania for the past 23 years. He has beast masteries in both dragons and Nundus. In my opinion, he is the most qualified and should do a fine job. He does sound like just the man we need, Fudge nodded. If I may, I'd like to suggest a different person for the job, Harry interjected, his eyes firmly fixed on Mathilda. Yes. Who would that be? She asked. You can't be serious, she exclaimed. Don't say it. Charlie quickly interjected, cutting off the reply that Harry had no intention of making in that crucial moment. I think that you would be the perfect person for the job, Harry insisted. You know the dragons, what they need, and you've worked tirelessly for this weir since even before it was a weir. Harry, Mathilda doesn't even have a mastery, Charlie pointed out. So, he shot back. That thing isn't worth the parchment it's written on. It doesn't touch on dragon culture, working with dragons as an intelligent species, the true needs and wants of dragons or anything. You know that. Briefly, Harry noted the frown on Charlie's face that quickly morphed into one of intense contemplation. But I don't know anything about running a dragon reserve, let alone a weir, Mathilda stated. Harry smiled at her. Just the fact that you are able to differentiate between a weir and a dragon reserve is an excellent sign, one that proves my point. You care for the dragons, that's worth more than anything else in my book. The other stuff, the dragon handlers can teach you. I don't know, Harry, she replied uncertainly. Harry, Mathilda is one of my sub-department heads. I need her at the ministry, Fudge put in. I get that you need someone to do the paperwork, Harry replied. But this is the real world, and the dragons need an advocate. Look, how about we ask the ones that matter? Harry took a couple of paces forward and bowed to the 6 dragons looking on interestedly. My friends, we are currently deciding who should be the leader of 2 legs here at the weir. I have proposed Mathilda to fill that role and seek your counsel, he said, laying a hand on the witch's shoulder. Instantly, a deep thrum filled the air, not just from the 6 dragons in front of them, but also from a dozen others arrayed nearby. You are our speaker. Meredith stated your thoughts will always carry great weight with us, more so in this, as your wisdom echoes our own. Your choice is very good, speaker. We will be happy to have her wear here with us. There, that settles it, Harry beamed, turning back to the humans. The dragons want Mathilda to be the head handler, too. Is that what that noise means? Mathilda asked. The dragons thrum like that when they're happy or they approve of something, Harry nodded. Harry watched her look at the dragons for a long minute before she turned to Angus, who gave her an encouraging nod, and then to the minister. Minister Fudge, she said, straightening. I formally request a transfer from the ministry to become the head dragon handler of the Dragon Weir of Great Britain. Fudge stared at her before looking at Harry and then casting a nervous look at the dragons. Very well, Mathilda, he finally said. Well, work out the arrangements back at the office, but consider yourself reassigned. Thank you, Minister, she smiled before spinning about and bowing deeply to the dragons. Harry, please tell them of my new position, and that I promise to do everything in my power to do a good job as the head dragon handler. Mathilda thanks you for approving of her for the position as leader of the 2 legs here, and vows to work to ensure that you have all that you need to live a good life here in the weir, Harry translated. Once again, the dragons thrummed in approval, enhanced by bugles of happiness from both Farleys and Bremleys. I'd say yarn dragons approve, Angus laughed. I am hoping that I'll be able to call on you to help me talk to the dragons if any problems come up, Harry, Mathilda asked. As much as I can, Harry nodded. This weir may not be a part of my official contract, but as speaker for the dragons, I aim to visit all the dragons of the world as much as I can. I am very glad to hear that, Harry, Fudge beamed. May I quote you on that? I understand that you can't stay in Britain permanently because of your contract, but telling the wizarding public that you'll be back periodically will hopefully placate them, especially after the allegations of this prophecy that Dumbledore was sprouting at his trial. Harry sighed. Thedley Prophet had been particularly espousing the idea that Harry needed to stay in the country to keep them safe. They'd even begun bandying about a new name for him, the Chosen One. As far as he was concerned, it was even worse than the boar who lived. If you think it'll help, sure, he replied. Okay, we have our head dragon handler, Charlie said. So, which dragon is weir leader? I guess that's my cue, Harry grinned at him. He turned and once again bowed to the 6 dragons arrayed in front of him. My friends, the 2 legs have their leader to help the weir. He began it is only right that this new weir also have a weir leader. Instantly, the dragons began thrumming in approval and anticipation. Bugles from those dragons sitting on the outskirts of the area sounded, and Harry knew that they were calling for all the dragons of the weir to attend them. You are the speaker of dragons. You speak for us, with our voice. We hold your words above our wings. We ask you, speaker, to decide for us which dragon shall lead, Mirdes said, lowering his great head. As he'd been speaking, the air around them filled with dragons, all winging towards them before perching in a circle around Harry and the 6 dragons. A glance behind him showed him that Charlie, Angus, and Mathilda were huddled together with Fudge in the center of them. I thank you for your trust in me. I do not take this charge lightly, Harry said, bowing once more. Slowly he turned about, taking in the dozens of green common Welsh dragons and black Hibernian dragons. Finally, he once again faced the 3 native dragons that he knew the best. I have thought long and hard about who I believe would make the best weir leader, he began, knowing that dragons were not ones for long, drawn-out speeches or actions, and, after careful consideration, I declare Mirdes, the eldest dragon of the weir, to be the first weir leader of Albion. A thrumming so powerful that the very ground under his feet vibrated permeated the island with the dragon's happiness and approval. Even as a great many dragons began trumpeting in the air, loud enough for Harry, and the other humans to clap their hands over their ears in an attempt to prevent hearing loss. Dragons leapt skywards, winging about in an aerial display that awed Harry beyond anything that he'd seen before, and he couldn't help but join in their happiness with laughter of his own. Finally, after 10 minutes of dragon celebration, they had quieted enough for Mirdes to step towards Harry and extend his long neck outwards, and down so that his chin was laying on the ground at Harry's feet. Even with that, Harry still had to look up into Mirdes' eyes. Speaker, you have given me a great honor. The weir leader stated I will not let you down, but lead the weir in wisdom and honor, for all dragons, not just here in our weir, but for all dragons' kind. Harry beamed at the great Hibernian black and reached out to pat him on his snout. I know you will, Mirdes, he said. Harry, a tentative voice asked. Mathilda, Harry said, turning towards her. Come meet the weir leader, Mirdes. Hello, Mirdes, she said, despite knowing that the dragon couldn't understand her. It's all right, you can touch him, Harry said. Cautiously, Mathilda took an extra step forward before slowly reaching out and placing a hand beside Harry's. He smiled and stepped back, leaving weir leader and head handler to get to know each other. This, he thought, bodes well for the future. 0v0, 7:35 a.m. Thursday, 2 August 1995 Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Scotland. He knew that he should question it. After all, it made no logical sense. Not that logic and magic ever really went hand in hand. But this, Harry shook his head at the wonder of it. 3 dragons flying over Scotland, over houses and hamlets, even towns, and a city, and not one Muggle had seen them. Not one person had looked up at them and pointed and screamed or run away. Running. Yes, Harry was positive that there would be lots of running and instant panic at the sight of 3 enormous dragons flying through the sky. But there wasn't. Instead, there was simply nothing. He supposed that the dragons had some sort of innate cloak of invisibility or a magical field that stopped them from being seen by non-magicals, which made sense. He was sure that he'd read somewhere, or maybe Newt had mentioned it, that other magical creatures had it as well. And the only reason that magical creatures had made it into Muggle fairy tales and myths and legends was that they'd been seen by someone with a hint of magic in them, a squib maybe, and had told the story. Maybe one day he'd ask. Whatever the reason, all he knew was that he could look down on the people there, going about their normal routine and see them, but if they looked up, all they saw was the endless blue sky dotted with the occasional cloud, nothing more. If only they knew that, not that far above them, he was there, riding on the back of a dragon. Harry grinned when the small town below took on some very recognizable features. Hogsmeade, there was no doubt in his mind. Leaning back into Ramaranth's spine that he was wedged between, Harry pulled out his special mirror. "Daphne," he called. Her face appeared almost instantly, as though she'd been expecting his call. "Harry," she smiled. "Then where are you?" "Hi, Daph," he said, ignoring her question. "I was wondering if you could do something for me." "That would depend," she replied. A hint of familiar, bushy-looking hair on the edge of her mirror told him that she wasn't alone, which worked perfectly. "I was wondering if you could take this mirror to Hagrid," he asked. "Hagrid? Why?" she asked, and now he could also see a flash of long red hair on Daphne's other side. "Because I have a surprise for him," Harry replied. "I think you, Nev, Hermione and Susan would enjoy it too." "Very well then," she replied. He waited then, seeing the image in the mirror jostling, about as Daphne stood from where she was obviously sitting in the great hall, and began walking. Ramaranth's wing tipped, and he leaned into the soaring curve. The majestic sight below him took his breath away. He'd seen it from the air before, but from the back of a dragon was something else. "Harry, are you still there?" Daphne asked. "I am here," he confirmed, smiling at her. The next thing that he knew, the mirror had changed hands, and he was now looking into the extremely hairy face of the very first magical person that he knew. "Hi, Hagrid," he called. "Harry." Hagrid boomed back at him, a massive grin showing behind his beard. "It's good to see ya." "You too, Hagrid," Harry grinned. "This is a marvelous little thing you got here, this mirror," Hagrid said. "Yeah, it is," Harry replied. "Hagrid, I've got a surprise for you." "You don't need to be getting me anything, Harry," Hagrid replied. "Just getting to talk to you is special enough." "I know, Hagrid, but believe me, you're going to love Ethis," Harry assured his biggest friend. "All you have to do is go to the window and look outside." "Outside, you say?" Hagrid asked, obviously confused. "Please, Hagrid," Harry insisted. The extreme jostling of the mirror told Harry that Hagrid had agreed to do as asked. Lowering his hands slightly, Harry switched focus to where he, Ramaranth, Grulith and Norberta were. Already, they'd flown over the Quidditch pitch and were now banking along the side of the great castle. He saw the entrance appear and beyond it, the windows that they needed. "There, Ramaranth," he called, pointing the way. How she saw his finger, he was never quite sure. All Harry knew was that the three dragons slowed to an almost stop, hovered right outside the window for a second before flaring their wings and landing. Harry, dragons, Norbert. The great, booming voice was nothing compared to what he suspected it would have been like in there with Hagrid, as opposed to having thick castle walls between them. "I think Hagrid's seen us," he commented dryly. "You don't say," a clearly disgruntled Daphne said, appearing back in the mirror. "Next time you decide to do something so wonderful, warn a girl to use a muffling charm on her ears, yes?" "Sorry, Daph," he replied contritely. Her exasperated sigh seemed a little put on, especially when he noticed the smile around her lips. "I'll see you in a minute," she said before the mirror went back to being just a mirror. Pounding footsteps had Harry's head, whipping towards the castle's entrance a second before Hagrid burst forth and began jogging towards them. Quickly, Harry swung his leg over and slid down Ramaranth's side, thanking her with an affectionate slap for the well-placed leg that he used as a step. "Norbert," Hagrid bellowed. The Norwegian Ridgeback might not be able to understand Hagrid's words, but Harry could tell that she recognized the man that had helped hatch her. Swirls of excited gold were added to the blues and greens in her eyes, and she took a step towards Hagrid, her wings extended. Hagrid, of course, didn't stop despite the obvious dangers to everyone else of running up and hugging a dragon. "Oh, Norbert, ye came to see your mummy. What a good boy ye are," the half-giant blubbered. "Ah, Hagrid," Harry said, figuring to get the most important embarrassment out of the way first. "Norberta's a girl." "A girl," Hagrid said, pausing in his hug to stare up at the dragon whose neck was curved right over so that she could peer down at him. "Are ye sure?" "Yes, I am sure," Harry replied, ignoring the snickers from not only his friends, but what looked like the rest of Hogwarts who had piled out of the doors to see them. "Well, that's terrific. Truly wonderful," Hagrid said before going back to hugging his daughter. "Harry," Daphne asked, careful approaching. "You didn't mention that you were coming today. Surprise." He grinned. "Is it pleasing to see your mate again, Speaker?" Ramaranth stated. Harry grinned up at her before repeating what Shed said to Daphne, albeit with a slight modification to her words. After all, even though Daphne didn't mind what she was known as, there were other ears around that had no business jumping to the wrong conclusion. Daphne bowed to Ramaranth, an act that pleased the dragon, evident by Ramaranth's deep thrumming. "It's good to see you again, too, Ramaranth," she said. "Mr. Potter." Harry would know that voice anywhere and turned to see his old Transfiguration teacher standing there, ramrod straight in front of the majority of her students. "Hi, Professor," Harry replied, walking over to her. "May I ask what the meaning of bringing 3 dragons to Hogwarts is?" "I trust we're not going to witness another first task?" she asked dryly. "No, Professor," Harry laughed. "Nothing like that. I simply thought that, since Norberta was nearby, that Hagrid might like a visit from her. And I figured that everyone here wouldn't mind an up-close and personal experience with a dragon. Think of the learning opportunities." "I see," she replied, and Harry was sure that there was a hint of an upturn in the corner of her mouth, although it was so fleeting that he wasn't sure if he was mistaken. "I trust that you will ensure that it is safe for everyone." "Definitely," Harry nodded quickly. "As long as everyone is respectful, I know my friends will be gentle." "Yeah, Harry, like the dragons wouldn't do anything that you asked," Neville quipped. Harry shrugged. "I don't control them, Nev, you know that. We just have a mutual respect for each other." "Speaker, would your green friend wish for another flight?" Grulith asked, a note of hope in his voice. Harry's eyebrows rose. While he'd known that Grulith had taken a liking to Neville, he hadn't realized just how much. "Nev, Grulith is asking if my green friend would like to go for another flight," Harry asked. "Green friend?" Neville asked, eyeing the Ironbelly whose head had extended so that his snout was within Neville's reach. "The dragons can smell the earth on you," Harry shrugged. "Well, would you?" "If that'd be okay," Neville said, having taken a deep breath and squared his shoulders. "Gryffindor," Hermione huffed, but Harry could tell that it was good-naturedly. "Neville would be delighted," Harry told Grulith. The fact that Grulith instantly crouched, his leg angled just right for Neville, was a clear invitation. The watching crowd of students gasped in shock as they watched Neville awkwardly scale the great grey hide before settling in between 2 ridge spines. Of course, Neville climbing astride Grulith had a reaction from both Norberta and Ramaranth. "Speaker, tell my 2-leg to climb up," Norberta insisted. "Your mate is welcome to fly with me, Speaker, as she has done before," Ramaranth said. Quickly, Harry translated for Hagrid and Daphne, causing Hagrid to burst into tears and hug the ridgeback all the more. By the time that Harry, Susan, and Hermione had coaxed him astride Norberta, Daphne had also climbed atop Ramaranth. And then, as one, the 3 dragons crouched slightly before leaping skywards. "Why couldn't you bring Farleys and Bremleys?" Susan huffed. "Next time," Harry replied. "We will hold you to that, Harry. I hope you know that," Hermione stated. "I never thought that it'd see the day," Professor McGonagall breathed. "People riding dragons, and 2 of my own students at that. Can I have a ride too?" Ron called. Harry looked about, found the red head, and instantly shook his head. "No," he replied flatly. "Hagrid is a very special case, and there are reasons that the dragons will allow Daphne, Neville, Hermione, and Susan to fly with them, reasons that I am not going to go into. They will, however, allow everyone to get close enough to touch them, providing that everyone is respectful." "What would happen if they think we're not being respectful?" a worried-sounding Katie Bell asked. "I'll leave that to your imagination," Harry said, letting his gaze slowly sweep over the crowd to allow that to happen. "I can assure you, Mr. Potter, that everyone will be on their best behavior," Professor McGonagall stated. "I never thought otherwise," he smiled innocently. Switching his gaze upwards, he watched Ramaranth soaring over the Black Lake, a massive smile on Daphne's face, a grin that was echoed in the faces of Neville and Hagrid as Grulith and Norberta followed in Ramaranth's wake. Chapter 37. Hello and goodbye. 7:35 a.m. Monday, 13 August 1995, Papa Store, Shetland Islands, Scotland. Speaker. Harry looked up from where he was bent over the long trestle table set outside the big Muggle building that had been converted into the main hall for the Dragon Weir of Great Britain. The last of the plans for the Handler's village that he and Angus were looking over were shaping up nicely, and Harry was sure that the dragons would be happy that the humans would only occupy a small area of the island. It helped that it mostly consisted of magically renovating the existing village that had been on the island, including with space expansion charms. Hello, Farleys. Harry called before frowning. There was something in the way that the common Welsh green was flying, as though she was constantly trying to look over her shoulder, that had him instantly on alert. What's wrong? There is a strange dragon winging towards us, Farley's replied. Harry's frown deepened even as he stepped across to grab up his broom from where it rested against the nearby wall. Strange in what way, Farley's? He asked. The great dragon landed, but instantly scrambled around so that she was facing back the way she'd come. The fact that her wings remained half unfurled screamed that she was ready to leap back into the air at a moment's notice. The dragon is there, and not there at the same time, Speaker, she replied, sounding frustrated. Hearing that, and knowing that dragons had probably the best eyesight in the world, made Harry's mind up. Let's go meet this strange dragon together, Harry said, as he mounted his nimbus. As he shot into the air with Farley's right behind him, Harry took note that they weren't the only ones flying. 4 others, 3 Welsh greens and a singular Hibernian black, altered course and formed up behind Harry and Farley's. Harry pushed his nimbus hard, the wind whipping at his clothes. Despite how fast he was going, he knew that the dragons were holding back in deference to him. It took less than a minute before he first spotted the aberration in the sky. Harry frowned at it. Farley's was right. There was something strange about it. One second it was there, the next it had disappeared. But the longer that he stared at it, and the closer that they came, the fewer the disappearances there were. An opali, Harry suddenly blurted. Now that he recognized what he was seeing, he understood. One of the most distinguishing features of an Antipodean opali was the fact that their scales perfectly reflected their environment, making them virtually invisible at times. He'd seen it more times than he could count when he'd been visiting his Australasian dragon friends not that long ago. Bringing his broom to a near stop, Harry waited for the approaching dragon, the dragons around him stiffening their wings and allowing the wind to hold them aloft in a glide. It didn't take long before the opali came close enough for Harry to recognize, or more precisely, for Harry to see the distinctive scar that marred the dragon's lower jaw and neck. Zanzin, Harry called in greeting, punctuating it with a big wave of his arm. Speaker, I have found you. Zanzin replied wearily. Follow us, Zanzin, Harry said. Whirling his broom around, you can rest your wings on the island up ahead. It's where the dragons of Avalon weir. As they flew towards the island, Harry cast an eye on his opali friend. It was obvious that Zanzin was more than exhausted. His long neck drooped, leaving his great head almost lower than the rest of his body. His wings, too, weren't rising and falling with a normal dragon's strength. Instead, it appeared that it was taking everything that Zanzin had to lift them after every downstroke. Thankfully, it was only a very few minutes before the group landed. You flew all the way here? Harry asked, having approached Zanzin and laying his hand on his lower jaw. It is where you are, Speaker, Zanzin replied. But halfway around the world, Harry shook his head in amazement at the feat. He had no idea that dragons were capable of flying that far. How Zanzin wasn't seen was covered under the simple explanation of dragon magic, but the distance and direction, how did you know where I was? Harry asked. All dragons know where the weirs of other dragons are, Mirdes answered for Zanzin as he walked towards them. They do, Harry asked. The Council of Weir leaders may not gather often, Speaker, but when it does, the location of all dragons worldwide, both those known to 2 legs and those still hidden, is shared. When next the leaders meet, I shall join them, Mirdes stated. Harry blinked at the eldest Hibernian Black, a World Council of Dragon Warrior leaders. He was sure that no dragon handler, let alone any witch or wizard, even knew that such a thing existed. Idly, he wondered if, as speaker, he could get himself an invitation. But that was a thought for another time. Right now, the mystery of Zanzin's arrival needed to be dealt with. I thank you for explaining, Warrior leader. Harry bowed before turning back to Zanzin. Why have you come, my friend? Is something wrong in the Warrior? No, speaker, not wrong, something right, Zanzin replied, his eyes showing whirling streaks of blue, green, and yellow, indicating his happiness and excitement. The eggs, Harry gasped, grabbing onto the first thought that popped into his mind. Have they hatched? But it's too soon. Shicklin's eggs have not hatched yet, speaker, but very soon, sooner than any dragon expected. Both Shicklin and Dankram agree. All dragons of the Weir wish for our speaker to be there when the hatchlings emerge. I was given the honor of finding you, speaker, and ensuring that you were there in time, Zanzin said. A great thrum of approval burst forth from the assembled dragons, and Harry could see the approval and excitement running through the whirring eyes of the dragons of the Weir. The eggs that would be hatching might not belong to this Weir, but they belong to all dragonkind. The speaker was not there when my hatchlings broke shell, but that was a time before he was speaker. He will be for my next laying, Ramaranth declared. I wouldn't miss it. Harry smiled at his favorite dragon. How soon must I be at the Weir, Zanzin? Zanzin looked up at the sun for a moment before fixing his gaze on Harry once more. Sooner than I can fly home. 2, 3 suns at the most. Can 2 legs can fly faster than dragon wings? He asked. Harry laughed at the dubious looks the dragons were giving his broom. Not on this, I can't. He agreed, but there are other ways, both magical and normal, that can get me there in time. That is good, speaker, Zanzin replied, nodding his great head. But what of you? Harry asked. I have served my Weir by bringing you the message. I will rest, and then return to the Weir when I am able, Zanzin replied. You are welcome here in our Weir for as long as you need, Mirdiz told him. You must go, speaker. You have far to travel, Ramaranth stated. Harry nodded even as he looked up and around at the gathered dragons. You're right, Ramaranth. I need to make travel arrangements, but I promise to return here either later today or tomorrow before I leave Avalon. He said, until soon, my friends. And then, after taking out the small carved grim that Sirius had given him, he tapped it with his wand and disappeared in a swirl of portkey blue. 0v0, 7:50 a.m. Tuesday, 14 August 1995, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Scotland. Now remember, we can't stay long, Remus stated as the 4 of them walked through the front gates of Hogwarts. We know, Moony, quit being a worry wolf, Sirius snarked back. Half an hour at the most, Charlie added, checking his pocket watch. Our portkey is scheduled to leave at 8:30, and we need to be at the international portkey departure point before that. Harry ignored the 3 of them. After all, they'd been over this more times than he could count that morning already. Indeed, it had taken a bit of convincing to get the 3 men to agree to this quick stop before they left England in the first place. Strangely enough, it was only after Sirius had received a very early morning owl that he had also joined in on the idea of visiting Hogwarts before they left that had settled the question. Your friends know that you're coming, don't they? Remus asked. I spoke to Daphne this morning on the mirrors, Harry replied. She would have told the others by now. Rounding the path brought the great castle into view, and Harry couldn't help but smile. It was magnificent, and even though living there for most of a year had been a huge adjustment from what life had been like before, he cherished what the castle had brought in his life. Friends, magic, a godfather and honorary uncle, and of course, dragons. I'll send them a quick message to let them know that we've arrived, Harry said before raising his hand and bringing to mind the last time that he was flying on Ramaranth. Daphne squeezed into the space between the great dragon's spine ridges behind him, her arms wrapped around him, her laugh right beside his ear. Expecto Patronum. Instantly, a dazzling white mist burst forth before forming into the shape of a dragon that flew off, its misty wings propelling it towards the side of the castle. Wand, Harry, Wand, Remus sighed in what sounded like defeat. Harry simply grinned and shrugged. Sorry, forgot. Besides, it's easier without. Looks like your friends are coming to see you off, Charlie remarked. Harry frowned. His eyes might not be as good as a dragon's, but even he could see that they were only people visible anywhere on the school grounds, and the castle entry was still closed up tight. I don't see them, he replied. Not them. Charlie laughed, emphasizing where to look by pointing up and off to the side. Looking that way, Harry couldn't help but laugh and jog off the path towards the large open patch of ground. His eyes tracked the 6 huge dragons winging their way towards him, each a different size, color, and type of dragon. Ramaranth, Grulith, Norberta, Meirdes, Farleys, Zanzin, Speaker. What are you all doing here? He asked as they came into land in a great arc around him. You are leaving our weir and our shores, Speaker, Meirdes replied. Farleys and I wish to see you off properly. We 3 are leaving here too, Speaker, to return to our own weir, Grulith added. It has been too long since I have been parted from my fledglings, Ramaranth stated. Harry nodded. I miss them too. Please say hi to them for me and tell them that I'll be back soon. Of course, Speaker, Ramaranth replied, lowering her head in acknowledgement. And after all that I have heard of this two-leg place where you first spoke to Ramaranth and Farleys, I wish to see it for myself, Zanzin said. Harry. He turned to find that Daphne, Neville, Hermione, and Susan had arrived while he'd been talking with his dragon friends. Daff! He exclaimed, leaping forwards to catch her up in his arms. After soundly kissing her, he grinned at the rest of his friends. Hey, guys, good to see you all. Well, at least he acknowledged we were here, Susan said, barely hiding her smile. What can you expect? We're not dragons or his girlfriend, Neville retorted, stepping forward to shake Harry's hand. You're truly off to Australia again? Hermione asked, her eyes darting between him and the Antipodean opali. Yep, Harry replied. The eggs are due to hatch either tomorrow or the day after. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see dragon eggs hatch. I am not going to miss it. Somehow, pup, I suspect that you're going to see hundreds of dragon eggs hatch in your lifetime, Sirius laughed. Harry simply shrugged, sure that his godfather was probably right. Ah, good, we're not too late, a new voice exclaimed, making the group turn. Daddy, Mum, Daphne exclaimed, quickly disentangling herself from Harry to rush across to give her parents a hug. What are you doing here? Well, a little birdie, Cyrus began. Sent by a rather big dog, Penelope interrupted. Told me about something special that was happening, Cyrus continued, and he might have invited us along. Daphne's eyes bulged as she realized his meaning. You're going to Australia with Harry to see the dragon eggs hatch. Not quite, dear, Penelope smiled. We're going to Australia with Harry to see the dragon eggs hatch. Cyrus beamed. We're here to pick you and your sister up to join us. Daphne stared at him, then her mother, then Harry, back to her father and promptly squealed a very un-Daphne-like squeal. I am going too, Sirius, Harry asked. As you said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Sirius grinned. So I thought it only fitting that your girlfriend gets to experience it with you. Ooh, I am so jealous, Susan remarked. But so excited for you too. Y'all have to tell us all about it when you get back. I'll take pictures to send to you guys, Harry promised. We will hold you to that, Harry Potter, Hermione stated. Speaker, is your life mate well? She keeps jumping up and down. It is most peculiar, Ramaranth asked. Harry laughed. She's just excited. Daphne and her family are going to be coming with us to the Australian weir to see the hatching. Your life mate will be welcomed in our weir. Zanzin said she will be safe under our wings. Ah, here comes Professor McGonagall now with Astoria, Cyrus commented. Harry looked to see the two striding down the path. Harry's heart swelled at how neither of them even paused at the sight of the 6 great dragons around the humans that they were walking towards. It seemed that even in his short time as speaker for dragons, a change was beginning to sweep over witches and wizards. At least, the ones here at Hogwarts and a select few others. And as Newt was fond of saying, if you could change even just one mind about a dragon or magical creature, then you've done a good thing. Professor Astoria, Penelope greeted the two. Good morning, all, Professor McGonagall said before pausing and bowing slightly towards the dragons. My word, Harry heard her mutter when 6 great heads dipped towards her in response. I like this one, Speaker. Mirdes stated she shows us respect like our two-leg does. We have seen a change in the two legs at our weir, too, since the Speaker visited, Zanzin remarked. I believe that this will be discussed when the weir leaders next gather. There is much here to think about, Mirdes mused. As much as we'd like to stay and chat, we've got a portkey that won't wait for us, Remus reminded everyone. Harry's friends were quick to close in around both he and Daphne, once again expressing their envy and wishing them well. Safe flight back to the weir, Ramaranth, Grulith, Norbiter, Harry said, stepping forward to give each of the 3 an affectionate slap on their necks. And what have you 3? Are you going straight back to the weir now? Not yet, Speaker, Mirdes replied, his eyes on the nearby castle. The towers there look good places to rest and soak in the sun. I believe we will spend the day here, observing the two legs some more. Harry blinked at them. In that case, enjoy yourselves. Professor McGonagall, Harry said, drawing her attention. I should probably let you know that Mirdes, Farleys, and Zanzin are planning on spending the day here at Hogwarts. They said something about sunning themselves on the towers and observing the students here. Oh my, Professor McGonagall said, laying a hand on her chest. I dare say that Hagrid will be ecstatic. The children will be safe. As long as they show the dragons the proper respect, most definitely, Harry nodded. She nodded once before her eyes narrowed as though a thought had occurred. If you'll excuse me, I think an announcement before breakfast finishes is in order. Until soon, Speaker Ramaranth said, capturing his attention once more. Until soon, Ramaranth, Harry smiled. Moments later, all 6 dragons were aloft. Quickly, they separated into 2 groups of 3, one group headed towards the castle, the other winging their way east. We'd best be off, too, Sirius said. Until soon, Harry said, giving his friends staying behind a last wave. Then, taking Daphne's hand in his, Harry led the others towards the gates and past the wards where they could apparate away on their next great adventure.